Welcome to the Alchemy of Ascension Season 4, Activation of Awareness, Well-Being, Intimacy, and Self-Mastery. I'm your host, Washela Sananda, and today it's my pleasure to introduce you to Tanmayo Lawson. Welcome, Tanmayo.
Thank you, Ashela. Beautiful to be here with you this morning.
Well, I am so grateful to have you, and we're actually on opposite sides of the world. So it's my evening and your morning, and I love that we can do this regardless of where we are in the world. So before we jump in and begin, I would love to invite everyone to join us in a short alignment meditation so that we can really be present and clear to receive whatever information comes through in this conversation today. And so I invite you to close your eyes and deepen the breath into the belly. And tune in to the light around your body and the light in your heart, making contact with the heart light, feeling the warmth and the clarity and the truth of the heart. And then as you're expanding the light of the heart, bring your awareness far above the head to the central sun and the heart of the central sun. And bring that light, the heart light and energy of central sun down through the ethers to the crown of the head, through the spine, igniting the heart, all the way down to the base of the spine, and then continuing down to the center of the earth, finding the heart of the center of the earth, the heart of the Mother Gaia, and then bringing that heart light of the Mother Earth up through the layers of the earth, through the roots as liquid crystal plasma, creative energy, coming up through the feet, up through the spine, and then centering in the heart. And feel this trinity of light from above, below, and within, bringing more focus, clarity, and expansion, and expanding that light around the body, holding space for us. And I invite each of you to receive whatever it is in this conversation today that will touch your heart light and expand your awareness. And with that, I invite you to come back and open your eyes. Thank you for doing that with me. And I'd love to read a little bit about what Tanmayo has been doing in the world, so you all have an understanding of where she's coming from, her background. Tanmayo Lawson is an international speaker with over 30 years experience in the field of wellness, self-inquiry, and transpersonal study. Born and raised in Scotland, she spent 30 years living in Australia with her origins rooted in Celtic mysticism and appreciation of the native and mystery traditions of this planet. Tanmayo is the creator and founder of Facial Harmony, a gentle and powerfully transformative treatment. She also facilitates Satori and the 3-day awareness intensive. In 2004, Tanmayo attended the Venus sequence with Richard Rudd, and since then has been increasingly involved with the Gene Keys and human design, teaching and sharing this body of work as part of a series of tools designed to expose you to your original self. And so really where I'd love to start today, Tanmayo, is if you could give us a little bit of background as to what brought you to have a life of transformational work. What led you to take this on, this journey?
Well, as a very young person, I felt there's something wrong. I felt like I'm not being told the truth. I would constantly have these feelings that these marvelous adults around me were telling me things, but I was missing this huge piece that felt completely whole inside, but I wasn't finding it a meeting place for it in my outer world. Um, and then I was very lucky around, I think, the age of 13 to meet a gorgeous friend who had moved to our town. And before very long, Caroline and I would be sitting on the seawall in the northeast of Scotland, and we'd be talking about the stars, and we'd be talking about memories, and we'd feel like something's not right here. And then there's a case of, I was very lucky. My grandparents were of the old tradition. So they were normally people that had a rhythm with the seasons and a deeper attachment to Gaia. And my grandfather used to say things like, those stars up there in that moon, you're made of the same stuff. So that was my very formative, introduction. But then I would do things like go to church and think, this doesn't make any sense. How can the teachings of Jesus be here? And then this is what's going on in the world. And then there's all this Old Testament, an eye for an eye. I thought there's no synthesis, there's no synarchy here, there's no harmonic that I can find, that I can share in the external, that sinks into how I'm experiencing love and life and ascension, of what are we actually doing here, and where are my star brothers and sisters? Where is my cosmic tribe? Something's off. So I think that started that questing, that seeking for deeper understanding, that took me all around the world in many ways, to meditations in India and darkroom retreats in Thailand, and 20 days of silence in the Thai monastery in Bodh Gaya, and Raja Yoga, that deep entering into the heart meditation, and on we could go. But the real it became really clear to me at some point that I am here on purpose. I didn't just land here on planet Earth. There are these 144,000 streams of consciousness. And what are we all doing here? The days of just sending one avatar are over in a way. I felt like there's so many of us here. What are we here for? And for me, it was always really clear, well, we can't go on like this. This was when I was very young. I wouldn't have had language for it in the way that I could have language for it now. But something didn't make sense. So it sent me on a journey of unraveling what is really here, and how do my living memories, that some people call past life experiences or interdimensional realities, because that was my living truth. I might be here in this physical form, but I am connected across many dimensions. So that brought, the curiosity to discover things and sit with Native American grandmothers and find these pieces that sort of lit up this light body as more living truth became, that awareness of the living truth it was like not validated, because I didn't need that, but it was confirmed, that I'm not here by myself. There's millions of us on this planet. So
Wow.
I would say that would be
That's beautiful. I mean, even as you speak, I can tell, I can just feel in your voice the connection and the transformation that you've done. You certainly have the voice of voice codes, and it just resonates at such a deep level. I love that your grandparents had you attuned to the stars and the moon at such a young age, and then you have this inner knowing of your multidimensionality and connectedness. Sounds like a beautiful start, and then a journey of so many things. So thank you for sharing that. Um, so, the way that I ended up finding you was through the Gene Keys, and the request for information, understanding of what are the Gene Keys. Last season, I had Karen Curry Parker come, and she spoke about human design, which was, for many of the following, was new. And of course, some were aware of it. And now I feel like, and you'll be a much better person to describe this, but I kind of feel like Gene Keys is the next level or dimension of human design. So let's just start there at the very beginning with the question, what are the Gene Keys?
Well, Gene Keys are a synthesis of living wisdoms. So perhaps you can enter the gate of Gene Keys through the quantum reality, if you like, but you can enter through very simple things. So, originally Richard was very involved. Richard Rudd is the author of the Gene Keys book, and he is the bard and this amazing poet that it has these complete downloads of living wisdom that just pours onto pages and into geometries. And so he's extremely gifted in that way. So Richard spent some time, 7 years, with Ra and human design. And I think actually Richard wrote some of the original books. But as with any transmission, it finds its own way out into the world. And with human design, I recall Ra saying that it takes 7 years, to really clear out and reorient our systems. And I relate that back to old wisdom teachings, if I think of things like, in the temples of Solomon, that there were children actually there's some history or hidden history that children born on a 7 were often immediately taken to the temple because they were those children that were going to come in with that sacred 7, and they would study 7 pillars for 7 years, to bring us to that kind of mastery that we were looking for. So when I heard that, I just thought, well, that's kind of another way of seeing something, that it takes time to immerse ourselves in true perennial wisdom teachings. And at the end of that time, suddenly lots of things were flowering in Richard, and it became really clear to him that there was a fresh transmission that was moving through him. So human design is fabulous. And I think the mechanics of it, to understand your auric information and how we're interacting together, is useful. For me, I was attracted to the mystery. There's Richard is well known. He's a published poet. So he has that quality of the mystical bard, and at the same time full of completely pragmatic wisdom. So I was attracted to that. And that was in the very beginning when he gave his first Venus sequence workshop. I think it was maybe 2005 in the UK. And since then I've just stayed involved. And at that time there was no book. There was no book, no website. He was this in his 30s, and I could just see this young man was absolutely seeded with something that was for the future, something we needed. So the gene keys for me give us this opportunity to come in through many different doors. But the most well-known place is that you can download a profile that gives you your own living life codes. So when I think of all the things that, I've heard, like we have all of this, dormant DNA or this, space junk that lives up here, yeah. It's like, what? I have, there's no way that I can have any alignment with that. I can say, okay, we don't know what it is yet, but actually a lot of us here already knew what it was. It was that gate that was opening to this new mutation of humanity. I would say it in that way, a conscious living reality where we live in all wisdom and yet playfulness, and in synthesis with business and family and love and care and dignity for all beings. This has been something that just has been alive in me since first breath. And I could tell that this man was seeded with something that wasn't even for now in one way, it was for laying the ground for this age of Aquarius, but also for those who are going to come afterwards. So you can find your own profile. If you go to genekeys.com and you're listening to this, you will find under resources a free profile. And in there you can put in your birth data. Now, for some people that still feels a bit airy-fairy, but for those of us that's the most grounded thing I can imagine anybody can do. And it will give you a map of what is really encoded in your living cellular matrix. What are these gifts and what are these essential qualities, these cities that are full of miracles? And what are the shadows that have come from our conditioning that we can give attention to, accept them, pause, and bring them home with all loving kindness so that they can be once more integrated back into essence. So this is the book. It doesn't look like this cover anymore, but in here, the 600 pages, you are really only going to be interested in the ones that are in your map in the beginning. And there's 64 collective archetypes that we're all living out and living through in some way. And they're for many years ago, like one of the first people in 1973 was a scientist and doctor called Martin Schoenberger. And he realized that there was a direct relationship between the I Ching and our DNA codes. And there are many people that have written about that and talked about it since, mystics and scientists. And this is that marriage of East and West and deep perennial understanding that allow us to enter into that inquiry for ourselves and see that we have a unique frequency, a unique aroma. There's no other like you, and there is no other like me. And yet at the same time, we're all God looking into each other's eyes. That's my experience of how I encountered the gene keys.
That's incredible. Something I've found, and I'm very much a novice at the gene keys, but even in the exploration that I've done, it occurs as opposite of learning almost anything else, where you go get a book about something, you read it, and then you understand it, and then you can apply it, right? This is the normal way of doing things. With gene keys, it seems the reverse. I learned about it. I got my profile. I started hearing about it, listening, exploring, And I almost feel like I know less now than I did 6 months ago when, when I started, because I'm like, wait a minute, this is such a, it's just so, there's a vastness to it that's almost not, it's, you can't pinpoint things, I guess, is how it feels.
It's an unlearning process. It's pretty clear to all of us that, we've been born into a collective field that conditions us to believe certain things.
Mm.
And it's very much dependent on our parents, on our ancestry, on the culture that we're born in. And it creates all these ideas and beliefs that are actually not the truth. But we embody them. We start to, like, we have taken on this. It's now woven through our DNA strands. All these untruths are woven through our DNA strands. And so from first, well, from womb life really, but all the way through to 21, the physical form, the emotional body, the mental body is receiving these hypnotic statements again and again and again. And as children, we learn how to cope in this environment. The divine child, the eternal spark, is alive and well, but surrounded by this density of beliefs that then we start to defend. So we get these two beautiful beings whose chemistry is attracted and they're fallen in love and it's gorgeous and it's magical and beautiful. And then suddenly after the romance period happens, they start to get in difficulty because this set of beliefs and the wounding underneath is going to trigger this set of beliefs and the wounding underneath. So you start to see how we've been in such trouble with relating, and then we kind of make relationships kind of concrete things instead of the living aliveness that is possible when we're living our love. But to do that, we need to break down these untruths that have become like a facsimile, and it's a word that most youngsters won't even understand probably. They become like a mirror image of ourselves, and we defend them and we get triggered when somebody doesn't agree with them. But when that starts to dissolve and you're sitting in your heart space and more of your authentic presence is here for you, when you don't feel like you need to show up like somebody else or look like somebody else, say the same things as somebody else, the living truth of what you're really here to experience and the gifts that you have to offer the world start to take up space in this inner house as all this conditioned behavior starts to fall away. But the thing is, we now realize that we are suffering as a collective from transgenerational trauma. So to really go through this, what and Gene Keys, you obviously are an ascension guru. So to go through this ascension process, it takes some real awareness and presence to notice that I might be triggered, but actually there's only 10% of it in present time. The rest it's the top of the iceberg. And everything else is the deep well of ancestral wounding. And it's not just coming through our biological line, as far as I'm concerned. In this trillions of cells, there's only so much of it that's actually considered human. We have biome and bacteria, and we have memories of reptiles and spiders, and the things that, what, don't be ridiculous, but that memory is in here, and it sometimes triggers all those survival issues instead of the recognition that this breath, this is the in spiritus, this is bringing in that breath of life, the breath of the divine. And when I can really be in that and remember that and lean into that, everything else unfolds before me exactly as it needs. But these traumas, these stress patterns that we've collectively gone through and that are very personal and that our parents went through. So, our parents and our grandparents have passed on things that they were taught. And it's good to remember that, yes, you're going to need to go through the stuff with your parents, but they were also a part of this evolving humanity. So it's up to us, I feel, now to be the ones who say, okay, this is where we've been, but it's enough. It's enough pain, it's enough suffering, it's enough inequality. Let's put ourselves in a place where love, truth, freedom rules. And to me, that's what Gene Keys offers in the 3 sequences that you will find when you look at your profile. There's an activation sequence, which is very much the physical world, how we were impacted in these 4 pillars of our temple by our first 7 years, even as physical experience. But what we really came in with, what is the gift in your life work? What is the evolution gift that is inviting you to open to what's happening now on planet Earth? What are you radiating every day that you're maybe not even aware of because it's clouded with the shadows and with what you think you are, how you think you should be, instead of seeing this is your authentic nature? And how do I ground that and embody it so that I can be living the fullness of my purpose? How do I open to the field of love through partnership in the Venus sequence in Gene Keys? This is the 2nd sequence. So how do I lay down my weapons so that I can really surrender into the purity of the light of love and share that? And then how do I open my heart and connect so deeply in alignment soulfully that my true talent, which is also my deepest wound, can actually be the gift that I'm sharing with humanity, that's the prosperity journey. And there's a vast difference between prosperity and wealth. This hoarding, or these, godzillionaires that we have. And also then we have people that can barely eat today. That this is an imbalance that has never made any sense to me. So the Venus sequence offers us, this love sequence that's in the middle of the synthesis. But the profile itself gives you your map to find your way through. So my experience of it is, I had been teaching for years before I met Richard in many different countries. So, I wasn't a newbie that was going to sit there and go, oh, that's really marvelous. It was really something that was, this is the next step. This is something that a huge swathe of humanity can walk in this door, and it has practical, pragmatic wisdom that people go home to their families and they feel different. And one of the beautiful things that's been happening is how many parents are saying that they are so different towards their family and their children from exploring the Gene Keys. And apart from all of the ascension ideas and the masters and the stars and all of those things, surely one aspect of embodiment is simply to be present in your life and to love it and be happier in it and accepting of what's going on. So sorry, that was a long answer, but it's like I got excited.
Beautiful. Yeah, there's this, I don't know, I guess that the poetic nature of, every time I hear you speak, or Richard, or is it Elijah?
Elijah.
Elijah. When I hear the 3 of you speaking, it's like poetry. It's poetry in motion. You're all, part of this living work, as you said, and I can feel the sacredness of it, and I appreciate the way that you share about it. And I would also say with ascension, it's embodied ascension. When we're here, it's all about being in the body, because we have these bodies for just this moment, right? While we're here, we might as well get in and then ascend from the body, bring our frequency up. At least the way that I share it is raising the frequency from within the body. It's not about getting out. It's about
No.
being more present, right? Because if we're not present, we're checked out, and we're going to be out of body most of the time. It's just a
Yes.
little moment that we're in here, so we get to enjoy it. And it feels like the gene keys are really a deep way to explore the embodiment, what it
Yeah.
means to be in a body.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Yes, that's exactly how we are. It's that, those years of, I mean, well, because I've been around a little while longer in this body. So, there were years of this very airy fairy going out business that you were talking about. I guess I'm just too Scottish or something. I don't know what it is, but I needed roots and wings.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the point for me, is that there has to be roots and wings. I'm not here to, what a grace to have this body. And there's a beautiful man, I think his name's Michael Lightweaver, and he wrote this fabulous piece called A Galactic Fairy Tale. And I remember reading it, I think in the 80s or 90s, and it's a gorgeous piece. And he calls this, I think he calls them biological spacesuits.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that was like, thank you. That's exactly what this is. We're looking for aliens or people from other planets. It's like, you guys, we're all here. We're all here. Have you seen us? Have you heard us? We are all here. This is the biggest game in the galaxy right now, is get this happening right here on Alcyon, in our own neighborhood. And I don't know how often in my life I've sat in coffee shops, and there was a glorious one in the German bakery in Pune. And I sat there one day and I thought, oh, this is actually like Star Wars, when the blue guy's playing the piano. And I thought, we are all here. We're just needing to remember. And some of us are here to share that remembrance. But more than anything, let's be embodied and happy, whatever that means, to be in our living truth when we're here. And, in Gene Keys, we have something called the 55th Gene Key. And the 55th Gene Key is, Richard shares the dream of the dragonfly. And this is this nature of transcendence. So, the dragonfly starts its life in the water as a tiny little creature. And at some point, it grafts onto a reed, perhaps. And then it starts to mutate. And all that water that it's taken in eventually becomes its wings. And it suddenly it's not even remotely similar to how it started out. And I think this is one of the secrets of Gene Keys, is that as I move deeper and deeper into this true nature that is here speaking today, this language changed. There is that light codes that are inviting us soulfully to speak from a different place, from a soulful experience about the most pragmatic things. Mm-hmm. So the dream of the dragonfly is very much freedom and freedom as we go through as a collective this great transformational shift that will allow us to sit in our divinity as the sacred sparks. And to do that, some of us have signed on that we're also going to be taking care of the sacred wound, because each of us carries that sacred wound, like, you know, like Achilles' heel, like Chiron's sacred wound. But it's an archetype. It came in with us. It's not even ours. And yet, to fully live our talent, our vocation in the world, it needs us to see that it's embedded in this core sacred wound, and that taking care of ourselves mentally and emotionally becomes more and more essential and powerful. And that's how that transcendence happens, through the embodied experience, to recognize, wow, this is what's sitting in my body right now, this anger or this hostility or this resentment. And those days of, oh, well, somebody else did it, that's the conditioning, it's their fault. But when we come back inside, we cannot heal what we can't feel. We have to be willing to go in and feel it and allow the treasure that's embedded within it, like the lotus in the mud in a way. It completely flowers in us and it can never go back to its previous condition. We can get triggered again, but each time it has less and less power because we're present. We've noticed, oh, that's that old story that's come up to grab me today. But also it's a service to the field to take care of ourselves in this way, in the recognition that we're not all here doing that. But there's no them in us. This is work that's given to me to do. So I'm showing up for it. And I can't imagine anything else that I could possibly be giving my life energy to. But for sometimes I think of of others that, you know, they're perfect in their having a different way of being. I don't know the great master plan of the divine quantum reality. I just know that there is not two. You know, there's a divine flow and there is a sacredness to all life. And even if I feel in some moment that I am diametrically opposed to what I'm hearing, I can still be in my sovereignty and not make them wrong. You know, this is when you come to really notice your soulful alignment. And for me, the gene keys have played a huge part in that. So that and it doesn't matter where you're at in life, this is what's glorious. I mean, sometimes I'm giving sessions to people, like recently, someone who's in their 80s, and they have been a seeker since they were a teenager. It's like, I'm in awe of that. And they're still opening and flowering and opening and flowering. And it's a never ending process whilst we have the gift of this body, you know, to explore this inner garden.
So beautiful. And as you're speaking, and I will be that person in my 80s that's been exploring since my teenage years, right? I don't ever intend to stop because there's just too much to learn. And again, like with the gene keys, if like the more I learn, the more there is to learn. The more I open, the more there is to receive. So you know, this time on our planet is of particular interest and challenge. And I wanted, you know, since you already spoke into it a little bit, I kind of wanted to open that up and just ask you, you know, what do you see this time as in the context of the new earth? Is this the metamorphosis? Because it sure does look chaotic out there.
Yes, I think when we all became aware of this around the world, you know, and all social media was filled with all kinds of graphics and memes and whatever, And my favorite one I'm going to remember forever. So there's two pictures, and one says something about the apocalypse, or what I thought the apocalypse would look like. And there's a guy standing there looking like Mad Max, or somebody out of, Mad Max. He's got the guns and the black leather and the tattoos and the band, the whole thing's going on. And the second picture is, this is what it really looks like. And he's standing in front of his fridge in his pajamas. He's dressing. And I think this is the most shocking piece for many people. For many of us here, we knew that something huge and dramatic would happen in this incarnation. I guess we just didn't ever think it would look like it does. So it's so easy to get caught up in this right and wrong of it. And I go back again to the master plan and to feeling like there is a higher harmonic here being asked of us. And I don't always know what it is. The only thing I know is I can bring myself back to that higher harmonic. And I got to the stage where I truly have no idea what this is. I don't know where it started, how it started. There's a lot of stories about everything. And when I come back inside, I can't find any. I still feel peaceful. I feel like, okay, whatever this is as part of this collective field of humanity and everything else that's going on in other realms, this is what has happened. So I can look at it in different ways, that as a collective field of humanity, we have not been giving too much care for each other or our home. It could be said that actually we've become a virus to a very home we live on, destroying the forests, the oceans. We're growing wheat, to feed cattle that feed 3% of humanity or something extraordinary. I don't know the exact figures, but there is something out of balance. So I don't want to make any of this wrong, but I feel the imbalance that has been happening. So somehow now we have some kind of thing that we're calling a virus that is not compatible with us. So we have been showing up as being incompatible for many years with Native people, with opening to anything other than our own beliefs, with how we want to care for the planet, how we're raising our children. Are we really allowing intelligence, or are we still trying to push knowledge and intellect by this rote learning that you spoke so beautifully about? We go to school and we learn all this stuff. And for some people, it's really valuable. And for other people, it has no value whatsoever. And sometimes now I feel like, our children are going to school with old curriculums and by the time these kids finish university, that stuff will be obsolete. So there's a lot of questions in me around what I've been seeing. But most of all, it has created a situation of contemplation for many. And there has been devastating effects in so many families around the world that has caused communities to be more open-hearted to each other. But it has also caused more fear of going out, fear of, you have to have your mask on, you can't see anybody. We've just come out of another lockdown here in Australia. It's really been intense in different parts of Australia. And at the same time, I feel very graced that I live in a bubble where there's been nothing here. And that can also be a bit like the avoidance and denial of the situation that's actually happening. And what are these vaccines and do they work? I mean, how it seems that this, whatever it is mutating faster than us. So, I don't know. So for me, I just feel like it clearly is part of the mutation because it's here. That's how I really see it. It's here. And collectively around the world, You know, we've got these places like your own state that are saying we're not playing.
Right.
You know, so we're not playing. We're not doing the mask thing, and you know, and I think that there's an experimenting going on with that in different places. You know, what? Hey, hang on a minute. I want to have a choice about whether or not I have a vaccination, and if I am going to have it, I want to choose which one. I want to do my own research. I want to find out. And now I find out that there are some that's called, I found out yesterday, there's one called the hippie vaccine because it doesn't have aluminium in it, and it doesn't have this in it, and it doesn't have that in it. And I'm thinking, well, how can they make these variations? And at the same time, now we've got Delta, you know, and then we've got some other E stream of this. And I just see the media creating this frenzy of what I consider as fear.
Yeah.
You know, so it creates fear. Now, I don't want to play this down because I know people. I'm not somebody who doesn't know people. I've had 2 family members violently ill for 2 weeks in hospital, and luckily pulled through. One of them also then had pneumonia, and it was an extraordinary time for everyone involved. And our family members are here, but that's not true for everybody in the world. And there is nothing more painful than, you know, one of your elders in your family is taken to hospital, you're not allowed to see them. You know, it brings you down to what is really important in your life. I think that for me, that's one of the greatest things that has happened is people are asking themselves, what is really important in my life? When suddenly a whole family are praying that their family member who's hospitalized will get a ground floor with a window so they can at least stand on the other side and see each other. It's like suddenly all of our, you know, big dreams and what we think of as achievements are brought to something very real. Who is in my life? How am I caring for my life? These things, I think, have become a big theme around the world. So I don't know what any outcome of it is, but I feel like it's pushing a mutation in all kinds of ways. Richard's had the vaccine. He told everybody right up front he's having the vaccine. Elijah's had the vaccine. They both think that they are not in the least bit concerned about it. Just get it over with and get it done. It's part of the mutation, you know, as far as Richard's concerned. So for me, it's like, excuse me, I'm going to be the last one at the gate, you know. It's more about the freedom of choice for me and there's nothing, I haven't seen anything that proves to me what it does. So if you can show me the research, you know, and people keep quoting, you know, smallpox and polio and diphtheria, but there was research to support that we don't have that research.
No, we don't.
So
and it's an experiment.
Yes,
it's all a big experiment
on us.
Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, this has got, I should say up front, you know, this is my personal opinion. It has nothing to do with
Right.
gene keys and nothing to do with the work. It's
Yeah.
just, but having said that, I noticed in myself, and this is only about a week or 2 ago, and when you get your chart, for those of you who do listen to this, please go on and get your chart. It's full of glorious information, and have a wander through the website, because although we have this huge tome that will give you at least 7 pages about your key that you want to investigate, and if you're a 55, there's like 20 pages, and the same with a 22, because these are really moving powerfully in our field. You know, the mutation into freedom, and freedom of the 55 is to let go of victimization and the victim. You know, and that's been a well-known archetype for, you know, since Jung was sharing about archetypes.
Absolutely.
So when you see that, you will notice some keys there that you'll suddenly feel like you always knew this about you. And there will be other things that are like really surprising. So in the Venus sequence, which is the love sequence, there is something called your soul quotient, if you like, your love point. And for me, that's in something called the 43rd gene key, which is a creative rebel. And they're kind of poets and pirates and lovers, and it's in a 6 line in the hexagram, which is all going to sound like gobbledygook at the moment till you have a look at what this is. But it's a visionary, it's like this visionary experience of what we can really embody here. And I suddenly had this moment where I was so disappointed. I just felt like, wow, here we are. We've entered the field of the age of Aquarius, and this is where we're at. So I found this disappointment. And then I thought, wow, so if I'm disappointed, I had an expectation or a longing for it to look different, instead of seeing that we are just at the start. We are just barely we're not even close to having grounded the Aquarius energy yet. That's what we're doing. Many of us have been doing it for a long time, obviously. But, we're grounding this energy now, and we're learning to be cooperative instead of competitive. We're learning what synarchy is. And synarchy is it's when you work in concert together. It's much more than democracy even. It's coming to a place where each divine being, each person in their sovereignty, whether you think of yourself as a divine being or not, when you are there in your authenticity, in your soulful expression of your sovereignty, then you can work as a team together in real communion. You can have your differences, but you're looking for the higher harmonic, not compromise. In our team, this just doesn't exist. We really work to what is this higher harmony that we're called to in synarchy. And in syntropy, how do we give back? How do we share this with others? And with Gene Keys, that we support something called lots of various things which you can find on the website. That there's things that we love to support. So I found myself in that place of this deep disappointment, and I thought, oh, so you were hoping that it would be faster, or you were expecting more. And then I just found myself falling into this really deep surrender. I had gone from disappointment to apathy to this very deep surrender, that this is all part of the master plan. The ones that are fighting it, that's part of the master plan. The ones that are accepting it, that's part of the master plan. But there is something mystical going on here that's greater than any of us can see at the moment, in my view.
Yeah.
So I just rest in that, and I stay out of the polarization. I went to a rally here in Australia, and I heard all this shouting, "Wake up, you sheeples." And I thought, that's not what I'm doing here. That's not at all what I'm doing here. I'm here for choice, your choice and my choice, whatever your choice is. I'm here because I don't like oppression. And I don't understand it all. And until you can explain it to me in a way that I can say, okay, here's my arm, I can't support it in the moment. It's not about whether it's right or wrong. It's about what's heartfully sitting in here.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing openly about that. It takes some courage and willingness to have some backlash.
And to see that as a team, we have different views.
Yeah.
Totally. And we all respect them. So this is the thing, and also and this is going to sound really contradictory, I respect the whole craziness that we're in, because we all know that before any really powerful breakthrough, before it becomes an epiphany, before it becomes more than transformation, and it actually becomes transcendent, when it becomes that alchemical shift in your atomic matrix, we go through a lot to get there. And we're birthing a new humanity. You know, we're not just going to the shop, you know, we're birthing a new evolution of consciousness.
Mhm.
So, you know, I had to give myself a little smack and say, really? There's a
Well,
divine plan.
it
So,
just you spoke so beautifully in all of that, and I'm really I just really love when you spoke of the deep surrender, and that's what brings peace. And that doesn't mean giving up your views on everything or submission. It means surrender, that there's something more going on and we don't have all of the information, and we get to be okay with that for now.
yes, it's just, and you know, I just, one of the things I love about Gene Keys is that, you know, we have these online retreats,
Mhm.
and that has been such a fantastic experience. So we're having thousands of people turn up for these retreats online. Now, traditionally, we go away to go to a retreat. But here we are living our life in retreat.
Mm.
It's having such a profound effect. So, you know yourself, if, oh, I'm going to imagine if I can include you, I don't really like making wee statements, but I'm going to imagine it might be true. So I go to a retreat, there will be a big shift, something extraordinary happens. But some of it will fade away also, you know, because it takes time to build the inner capacity to hold all of the magnificence of what happens in a retreat. So then in a little while, you know, I'm going to be looking for something more. And that's correct, because it's the whole of our incarnation. But sometimes you can go home from your retreat and feel like you're in an alien world. You
Yes.
know, yeah, really hard to be with your loved ones and your friends, because you were the one who went away and took that other step. They didn't do that. But I noticed I would come back and expect them to be different because I did something without recognizing actually they're your teachers in this moment, to just see how much humility you can have, or to see how open you can be to accept their reality that it's different from yours.
Mm.
So, and when we're in a virtual retreat, we're interacting all the time in our communities, with our friends, with our families. But also in these community calls that we have, you know, we have these breakout rooms. I'm sure everybody knows what they
Yes.
are around the world by now. And we have people from all over the world. So you have 6 people in a breakout room, you know, from Bulgaria or Romania or Russia or America or Canada or the UK or Africa. Or, you know, last night we had a fantastic guides call, because we also have a Gene Keys guides program. And 2 of the people that were talking, one was from Saudi Arabia and one was from Israel.
Mm. Wow.
You know, and they're just there having this conversation about love and dignity.
Yeah.
So there is so much community that Gene Keys offers to bring us together and to speak. Not well, it's to speak the language of love. It's not really about jargon. You know, you kind of learn what your keys are and the words and all of this stuff, and then you just drop it and you notice that you're just talking the essence of what that is.
Mm.
And the art of contemplation allows us that pause and pivot, turn inside, and allow the gentleness of the Gene Keys approach to really hold us in inquiry and contemplation and patience. So it's a contemplative community that has a lot of fun and a lot of outrageous sharing. And sometimes people that are, you know, willing to speak their truth, even although it might not always be the most appreciated.
Yeah. Yeah, I look forward to taking one of these retreats, and I've heard Richard talking about it, and it sounds wonderful. And yes, at a less packed time in my life, I will be there.
Well, you might be interested to know that in the Pearl retreat is happening in November, so it depends what your
November.
calendar looks like. But I think registration opens early September,
Okay.
and the Pearl is the prosperity sequence. So there are 3 sequences: activation sequence, which is very much physical body, core pillars, and Venus sequence is the love retreat. It's the partnership, and the Pearl is the prosperity. So the activation brings us to life, work, and purpose. So we ground in there. But the Pearl retreat is, what are you bringing? What are the gifts for your real prosperity in the world?
Gorgeous. Ah, yes. I'm looking forward to learning so much more, exploring more. And Tanmayo, thank you so much. The time just flew by. I could sit and listen to you all day. I'm sure you hear that a lot. You just are such a beautiful being. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I would just say one last thing, that is, on the site, you will find great things to give you really practical ways to find your way around the website. Whereas I'm much more about a flowy divine feminine that shares heartfully what it is in my life. And
Yes.
thank you, Waxela, for I'll say your name again. God, I just said it wrong.
Shayla. Yeah.
Washela. Yeah, thank you, Washela. It's like I can't get rid of that
When you
X
see
in the
it,
middle of my head.
when you see
Washela.
the X, it makes it difficult.
Beautiful. And it's such, I'm so glad you said it, because it's such a beautiful name. Does it have a special meaning?
It does. It does. It's really divine love.
Ah, beautiful.
Mm.
Well, then your divine love talking to dissolved into love this morning.
Mm. Well, what could be
Thank,
better than that?
thank you, heart. Thank you, darling.
Thank you so much. I will be sure to include the link so that everyone can get their Gene Keys profile and explore the site and take the dive in and enjoy.
Thank you.
And I'll end there. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Have a beautiful day or evening. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you. Thank you.